Okay, we want to talk about the timeline editor within Vizrt T5, and the timeline editor is this bar down here, part of the scene editor and stage, and it helps us create our animations. So what I'm going to do is load up a scene that has some animations in it, and when I load up a scene, Vizrt T automatically detects if it's a classic scene using the classic render engine or the Viz render engine. In this case, it tells us it's a classic scene, and if I hit the play button, you can see that we just have some animation here on this particular scene. So what are all these buttons here running along the bottom? So on the very bottom left is the layer indicator, and when we click on it, it brings up a new box here and can drag this box around anywhere within the window, and basically it shows us our directors. So what this corresponds to is our main, front, back, and you can see that main is highlighted. This corresponds to our layers up here. So our front is grayed out because we have no layer in there. Our back is grayed out because we have no layer in there. Our main corresponds to this here. Now it's also telling us that within our stage here, we have two directors. We have a background and a background loop. So if we only wanted to play one director, we could hit play on that one, and it would only play that one. If we only wanted to hit play and play that director, we could just hit play that director. We'll explain a lot more what this is in the directors and animations video, so you can check that out. So essentially this layer indicator shows the current layer as one of the three vertical indicators. When you're creating or playing animations, this window may become more important as we go on. When we're ready to close it, we can come up and hit the little X button, and that will close that window. Anytime you need to access it again, you can just click on it and it will bring up that window again. And you can tell when any button is enabled, there is a blue box around it. This lock selection activates the director of the selected container over here in the scene tree to be active in the stage when enabled. When it's disabled, it locks the selected director so that no matter where else you click in the scene tree, only that selected director is controlled by the buttons in the timeline editor. Next to that, there's a reverse, and this plays the timeline in reverse when it is enabled. And you can tell anything is enabled by the little blue button. The next button next to that is called Go to Start, and this jumps the timeline to the start of the current directors. So you can see when we hit that it jumped that animation back to the very beginning, and we can hit play, and that started the animation from the beginning. So next to that was the play button, and we can start this animation, and what happens is that it goes back to the very beginning and starts from 0. And anytime you just need to start, you can hit that button right there. And next to that is the stop button. So we can stop that animation at any time. Next to that is a continue animation. So we're going to continue that. And you can see down here within my stage what happens when we hit play, stop, and continue. So down here we have a little red bar that is our timeline, and we can grab that red bar and drag it across. And essentially when we hit stop, it's stopping that red bar. And in this particular case, in this scene, we have what's called a stop point. So the animation will play and it will get to a certain point and stop. And when it stops, that's when we have the opportunity to hit this continue animation so that it will play again after that stop point. And we go over this more in the animation videos, so you can check that out to learn more about directors and stop points. Next to the continue is the jump to the end of the animation, and you can click that and it takes you to the end of the animation. The button next to that is jump to previous keyframe. So if I click on that, it's going to take us back to that previous keyframe, wherever that is within the stage. And you can keep jumping back to previous keyframes, and you'll be able to see your red timeline marker move back throughout the stage when you jump to previous keyframes. The next one here is jump to previous timeline position, and that's this little minus sign here. So when you click that, that's just going to jump to the previous position within the timeline. And then next to that, we have our actual timeline. And a couple of ways that we can manipulate this here is, one, we can left click within this box here and just start clicking and dragging this number here with our left mouse. We also have dials here. We can dial up, we can dial down numerically. And also if we come down into the stage and drag our red line button, you can see that it will adjust that number as well. If you wanted to get back to 0 at any time, there's a little reset button right here. You can hit that and that takes it back to 0. Choose your way how you want to get to the numbers. You could also type in specific numbers as well with your numerical keypad. So the little plus button here, this icon represents jump to the next timeline position. You click that, it's just going to jump throughout your timeline, your stage here, to the next position on the timeline. Next to that, there is a jump to next keyframe, and that will just jump to the next keyframes within your timeline or stage area. Now the next one to that is the actual set keyframe. So this is how we set keyframes within Vizrt. And in particular, if we wanted to demonstrate this real quick, how to set a keyframe, what we would need is some type of plugin, such as a geometry plugin, or we could use some sort of asset from our asset view to create an animation. We'll use a geometry plugin really quick just to demonstrate how to set keyframes. We bring a geometry up here. We're going to move it to the left side of the stage. We're going to move it to the left side of the scene editor window. We're going to use our timeline here to set where we want the animation to start. And let's say I want it to start at 0. Then I would set a keyframe. And notice that that timeline automatically jumped 50. So you set a keyframe and that timeline advances automatically by itself. Why? Because we have this number set here to 50. And this box here says move timeline after the new keyframe is set. So now that my timeline is moved, I can just move my container to the right. We're going to set keyframe. And now a couple of things have happened. One, that we got a little animation icon within our container to let us know that there is an animation now. And if we come down into the stage, we can see that we have a new animation here, and it says cylinder, which is the name of the container, and then it says position, which tells us that that's what the keyframes are and how we moved it. So if we did that again, let's get rid of that animation. We will adjust this to 100, and then we'll reset our timeline. And let's say I want this white cylinder here to go from right to left. I'm going to start my animation at 0. I'm going to set a keyframe there. And now since we had this number highlighted to 100, this automatically advanced to 100. So I can slide this over. I can set keyframe, and now it gives us the animation, and our keyframes down here are set out to 100 as opposed to 50. If you don't want the timeline to advance at all after you click the set keyframe button, you can turn this button off. So if I reset our timeline to 0, our button is off. I'm going to set a keyframe. You can see that this did not advance at all automatically. So that means I need to do it manually. I can just come in and place or type in wherever I want my next keyframe to go at 55 perhaps. I can move my cylinder and then I can hit set keyframe and it provides that animation. So I'm going to drag that to the trash. I'm going to hit play again on my timeline. And remember that the timeline bar here corresponds to the stage. So when you're working with your animations, you're going to need your stage open, and these buttons down here will correspond to some of what you're doing down here.